I'm going to start with this, and this is pretty broad based. So I'll let you take this whatever direction it is that you want to go. But when you hear or heard, at least at first, people start talking about realignment and the different factors and what goes into it and who's going to fit where, what do you think people were missing? Like, what things get overlooked too much in this whole process that actually do tend to matter more than we think perhaps that they do?
There were a couple of things that I thought were really missing, a couple of perspectives. And I noticed that some of them were decision perspectives and some of them were cultural perspectives. The first was deciding perspectives, and that's that these decisions are made primarily by university presidents who are evaluating things that matter to them as presidents and to them as institutions. And I thought that in some ways it was a lot like hearing people talk about this was a lot like hearing people, football fans talk about it, was like hearing Post-it note users talk about the M&A strategy of 3M. In that I was like, okay, well, we should do this and that. And I was like, well, that has someone who's worked in intercollegiate athletics, who's helped work with running an intercollegiate athletic team. And as somebody who's worked with lots of school administrations on different levels, I was like, that's not at all what is mattering to these campus officials. And they are wanting to add conference members who do a couple of things, who are going to be good for them as sports competitors, but also who are going to value the things that they value in terms of like the role of the athletic department in their program and fit with their conference. And then choosing presidents who are going to be voting on things that affect their students. So they're going to want to make sure that they have people that are really people that they want sort of as presidents. I think the greatest example of that is Baylor. You look at, Baylor in this decision that befuddles much of academia. At one point had hired Ken Starr to be their president. And so for anyone that was stunned that Baylor poorly handled sexual assault situations, Ken Starr was their president. Could you have a more laughable thing? And what kind of board of trustees chooses Ken Starr to say, this is the leader who represents our values? Unexplainable. But at the same time, for brilliant reasons, they then hired Dr. Livingstone, who is amazing and a genius, brilliant academic, phenomenal former basketball player, wonderfully pragmatic, and understands really the true Christian values of Baylor and can translate that into academics in just a phenomenal way. She's now on the NCAA Board of Governors. Anybody would want Dr. Livingstone next to them voting on things that affect their students and helping their school. So they're kind of example of, kind of both the good and the bad. Like, what would you want in a school? You would want Dr. Livingstone voting on your students, and you would not want Ken Starr voting on things that affect your students. So the president and the values, for what the school wants makes a big difference. And the other thing that people were thinking about is just like in terms of football programs and not necessarily trajectory. So if we think about a school like Houston, the president of Houston has them on a rocket ship. I love the phrase Sheryl Sandberg said, has a great quote of, when someone offers you a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on. She has the University of Houston as now a Carnegie classified R1 research school, which is as high as it gets. I think she's going to have Houston in the AAU by the time it's done. Is raised a ton of money, has their academics booming. She's got them on a lightning ship. If you look at Boise, one of the things about Boise is they kind of get sometimes bagged on because it wasn't a major national university. It's ranked with the regional schools. But if you look at Boise has done just like Notre Dame and USC and Michigan did, has taken football and rode it on a rocket ship into saying we want to be a major national institution. And so you look at Boise, and they have doubled their federal research or their research spending in something like the last 10 years. They spend more on research than SMU does. They're an R2 school now, which is the same. They have the same research institution ranking as Baylor and TCU and SMU. And they are graduating now more of their players than they graduate or send to the NFL draft, more of their players than any Big 12 school other than Baylor. More than Texas, more than everybody, K-State, by the way, is really close. Go Wildcats. But, it's the kind of thing where you look at it, you look at all these different factors, and they're going to say, not only what is this school, but where is this school going? And that makes a big difference. The other factor that I thought people were really missing, and actually, let me flick to this real quick. The other factor I thought was really missing for a lot of folks in this was what the conference does. So some of the conferences, particularly the Alliance conferences, are much more than about sports. So and the Big Ten is the best example of this. The Big Ten, when you join the Big Ten, you are also become a member of the Big Ten Academic Alliance, which used to be called the Committee on Institutional Cooperation. And when Chicago dropped sports, they dropped sports, but they didn't drop this. They have stayed an affiliate member of the Big Ten for its academic alliance. And the reason for that is that it comes with so much more than just being about sports. So for example, when you join the Big Ten, you are integrating with the Big Ten on all of your purchasing. So you're not just buying at the rate of one university, you're buying at the rate of 16 or whatever they're at now with the affiliate members. You are joining your fiber optic networks. You're having joint cybersecurity endeavors. All their professional development and training is integrated together. So the teaching of how to go from being a history professor to how to be the head of the history department is integrated together. They network their PhDs to help them with their dissertations and then help them get hired as professors among each other. So when the Big Ten is looking at you and saying, like, do we want you to join? They're also saying, do we want to hire your students as our professors? Do we want you to teach our professors how to lead departments? Do we want you managing our purchasing? And do we want to go to the conferences that you're going to organize at our joint conference center at O'Hare? All of these are multiple things that join in the Big Ten. At the same time, the idea of leaving the Big Ten, of leaving all this behind, when I heard people say, well, Ohio State might do this, they could make $10 million more. $10 million. Ohio State burps $10 million on these things as an institution. The idea that you would leave all your fiber optic IT network development, all of that kind of stuff to be able to play Alabama a little more in football. No. And then travel, these schools, particularly the Alliance schools, are very much value the school aspect of their thing and have very demanding professors that, you sort of hear about sort of the little scandals sometimes, but these are professors that require their kids to be in classes. And so, the idea of let's fly to Morgantown on Tuesday for women's volleyball is going to be difficult for, these schools. So you look at the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is actually, flick to this real quick. The Pac-12 is very concentrated and very lined up with airports. So they zip those kids in and out doing travel pairs. And I mean, everybody sort of talks about travel pairs, but they take it to a new level. Somebody at USC Athletics told me once that a monkey throwing its own feces could do Pac-12 scheduling better than any other conference, just because of how they're set up in pairs. It's just naturally done. And when they added even the next two, they were adding, Utah and Colorado. Those are both schools with big airports, international hub airports, right next to their camp, close enough to their campuses.